Everyone has different body types, which is one of the reasons why everyone will lose and gain weight in different ways. This is also why certain foods and tips work really well for one person for helping them to achieve a weight loss goal, but might not do anything for somebody else. So today I'm sharing 3 easy ways to specifically lose belly fat based on the 3 main body types so that you can actually start seeing results. Let's dive into it. My name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's nutrition human performance. On my channel, I share the science-backed and delicious information to help you achieve your weight loss and wellness dreams. So if you're new here, make sure you subscribe. Today's video is also sponsored by Element, but more on them in a bit. Okay, so there are 3 main different types of body types: the ectomorph, the endomorph, and the mesomorph. Now, most people aren't just strictly one of these different body types. Usually you're a blend of each, although there's probably one that might be more prominent for each person. The ectomorph tends to be taller, more narrow. They tend to not gain weight as easily, but they also tend to have a harder time gaining muscle mass. This category people are most likely to suffer from something called TOFI, which is an actual scientific term that stands for thin on the outside, fat on the inside, aka having visceral fat even if you look thin on the outside. And then we have the endomorph, which is the category of people that tends to gain weight the most easily. They tend to have wider hips and waist compared to their shoulders, and they often can tend to be insulin resistant, which means that they're more sensitive to carbohydrates. This body type has also been found to be most strongly associated with obesity. And then there's the mesomorph, which they tend to build muscle the easiest. They might naturally have more muscle mass, maybe a broader chest or shoulders, but this category of people can also tend to gain weight easier than the ectomorph category. And especially when you're looking to target belly fat, each of these different body types has different tools that you'll want to consider. But before we get into that, I want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Element. Element is my all-time favorite electrolyte company, and they were specifically created with intermittent fasting, low carb eating, and athletes in mind. They actually contain the sodium, magnesium, and potassium to help balance electrolyte levels, all without having any sugar. You guys know I've been using Element for years. I think I first started having it back in 2021. I used to just take salt for my electrolytes because electrolytes are so important for preventing headaches, preventing muscle cramps, and for making sure the energy levels stay high. But I was so inconsistent with taking just regular salt because it doesn't taste good to just take salty water. But Element changed the game for me and made it so much easier for me to actually remember to take my electrolytes because it tastes so good. My all-time favorite flavor is their grapefruit salt. Like, if you haven't tried that one before, you need to try it, especially with it being summer. But Element has also recently released their new lemonade salt flavor, which is a limited release summer flavor, and it is so good, especially for those hot summer days. Adding it either to ice water or some sparkling water, either way, it's so delicious. And right now, Element is offering my viewers a free sample pack with any order. That's 8 single-serve packets free with any Element order. It's a really great way to test out all 8 flavors, so you can get yours at drinkelement.com/autumn. This is only available through my link, so make sure to check out drinklmnt.com/autumn. The link is also in the description down below. Okay, so let's start off with the ectomorph tips. The biggest focus with ectomorphs is that they really need to increase their muscle mass to help with metabolism and overall metabolic health, because this category of people, myself included, have the hardest time gaining muscle. If you are an ectomorph, you probably in the past just always defaulted to doing something like cardio because it comes really naturally to you when you are trying to lose weight, but this does not help with increasing muscle, and it can just keep you in that cycle of eat less, move more. So to achieve body composition and to help target fat loss while keeping or even increasing muscle mass for the ectomorph, these are the 3 things that they'll really want to focus on, / the things that I've had to focus on in the past. The first is strength training. This is absolutely a requirement to build muscle, and I know that it is not something that will come naturally to this group of people because it did not come naturally for myself, but it is not only important, it is necessary. And from my experience, this category of people really needs to follow a structured routine in order to actually see any type of results. Because they tend to not be as anabolic and have a harder time with increasing muscle mass, they can't just go to the gym and lift some weights and expect to see results. It needs to be very structured. You can either go about this by following a great online program, I'll put some of my favorites down in the description below, or having a personal trainer and making sure that you're really clear with what your goals are on wanting to increase muscle mass. And I've said this in the past, it's not like you have to be Arnold, but you do want to focus on increasing muscle mass, which will actually make the body look more toned and drastically help with overall metabolic health. Like you can see here, this is my before and after when I was focusing on specifically strength training and all these other tips. The second is hitting protein. In order to actually fuel that exercise and make sure that you're getting the muscle recovery you need to be getting enough protein. This is also something that ectomorphs tend to struggle with. They tend to eat a lot more carbs. Again, I used to be in this category. And although carbs have its place, you need to have protein in order to actually achieve that body composition and target fat loss specifically. So if you're curious on how much you need, I actually have a free protein calculator. I will have it linked down description below. And then for ectomorphs specifically, they tend to benefit from having a mixture of both medium and high glycemic load carbs, in addition to having those low glycemic load carbs as the base. From my own experience, as well as working with a lot of different people who kind of fall into this ectomorph category, when they start to really increase their protein, it can make it difficult to actually get enough food in for overall muscle recovery. So in addition to eating things like the whole fruits and veggies that fall into that low glycemic load category, the ectomorphs tend to benefit from also adding in medium and higher glycemic load carbs, which are less satiating, but also do provide the carbohydrates to refuel muscle and actually see the results that you need from the exercise that you're doing with that first tip. But you do still want to make sure it's from high quality sources, otherwise it will not help with your fat loss goal. So great medium and high glycemic load carbs would be things like chickpeas and lentils, real fermented sourdough, and sweet potato. Another great option are things like chickpea pasta or red lentil pasta. However, pro tip, red lentil pasta tastes so much better than chickpea pasta. Okay, and then there's the endomorph tips. This group tends to be the most insulin resistant. They tend to have the most carb sensitivity. And you can verify this with your doctor by getting a fasting insulin test. Either way, this group tends to not respond as well to carbohydrates as the other categories. So to optimize for belly fat loss, these are the three things that the endomorph will want to focus on. First of all, daily walking of 10,000 steps or more. Walking is an excellent tool to help absorb excess sugar from the blood supply. This also helps the body to prioritize more burning fat as fuel, and walking specifically outside helps to balance cortisol levels, which is a really important consideration when helping to improve insulin sensitivity. I found a range of between 10 to 12,000 steps is ideal for a lot of people, and using something like a step tracker is a really great tool to actually keep you on track. Now that still should be balanced with strength training like 3 times per week, but especially walking is something that is very important for this category. The second is sticking to low glycemic load carbs only. Those medium to high glycemic load carbs can spike the blood sugar of somebody who's an endomorph too much, and especially because they're carb sensitive, they might respond in a negative way to those medium and high glycemic load carbs, even if it is from a healthy whole food source, at least during the fat loss portion of a journey. Things are different during the maintenance phase, but we're talking about specifically belly fat loss and fat loss today. So instead, we want to focus on eating as much as you want from this category of low glycemic load carbs. This includes pretty much all whole fruits, but not any dried or juiced fruits. Then things like green veggies, cauliflower, zucchini, and then some legumes. I do have a full food list of the low glycemic load carbs. If you want to check that out, I'll have the blog post linked down description below. And then using intermittent fasting, but specifically a form of intermittent fasting called ETRF, or early time restricted feeding. Intermittent fasting in general has been found to help make the body more metabolically flexible, make it easier to burn fat as fuel, and possibly even help with insulin sensitivity. But ETRF specifically has been found to have those hormone balancing benefits, like having the higher cortisol level in the morning, which is what you want, and then lower cortisol in the evening, which is also what you want. That more balanced circadian rhythm of hormones can help to improve the sleep quality, which is very, very, very important for improving insulin sensitivity and reducing hunger the next day. Now I have a full video on ETRF, that type of intermittent fasting, so if you want to check that out, I'll have it linked right up here. Okay, and then we get into the mesomorph category. Now the focus for this category is making sure that you don't lose muscle during the fat loss process, which means that you're going to have similar but slightly different tools as the endomorph category. Now the first is to focus on low to medium glycemic load carbs, so you have a little bit more flexibility with those types of carbohydrates because you likely have more muscle mass than an endomorph, and when you have more muscle mass, it means that you're likely less carb sensitive. Assuming you are still strength training, having some of those medium glycemic load carbs can help with muscle recovery. So in addition to those low glycemic load carbs, you might also include things like bananas, some real fermented sourdough, lentils, and beans. But especially when focusing on fat loss and belly fat loss, you do want to make sure that you're avoiding those high glycemic load carbs for the meantime. Now the second is also to be hitting about 10,000 steps per day, and this is because mesomorphs tend to gravitate more towards strength training in the same way that ectomorphs tend to gravitate more towards cardio. So we want to make sure with all of these categories we're getting a balanced exercise approach, and with mesomorphs we tend to need to balance it out with a little bit more of that cardiovascular activity instead. And it's not like you have to go out running, because that's not always the best tool for fat loss. Just getting in the daily walking, trying to get about 10 to 12,000 steps per day is a really great place to start, especially for those hormone balancing perks. And the third for the mesomorph is to make sure you're still hitting your daily protein needs. Really, this is across the board for all of them, but because the mesomorph already tends to have higher muscle mass, you really want to make sure that you're not losing that during the fat loss process. And eating enough protein is a requirement to make sure that you don't lose that muscle mass while losing fat, which if you are a mesomorph, ectomorph, or endomorph, or fall somewhere in between all of those, you can still check out my free protein calculator to get an idea of how much protein you want to aim for each day. I will have that link down description below, or you can find it with this link that pops up right here. And using the scale is one of the worst ways to figure out if you're actually burning fat as fuel. Instead, there are 5 very clear signs that you are burning fat specifically. So if you want to check out that video, I'll have it linked right up here. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.